What is this?
It's jollof rice.
I thought you... You dare hit me?
Amara! Your husband is rich. You should be smiling. I'm trying. You're lucky. That man is powerful. I didn't choose him. I can't do this.
Amara, the ceremony is over. I'm coming. Just a moment. Now it's over. Oh no.
Guys, come look at this. A bride sleeping inside the cargo truck. Who are you?
Where am I?
Sir, you should see this.
What is it? You traveled a long way to get here.
I didn't mean to.
You hid in my truck.
I was trying to escape.
Come down.
Are you going to send me back?
No, you look like someone who needs help.
What do you mean she disappeared?
So we searched the entire compound.
Find her!
My son was humiliated. Find that girl and bring her back.
The mansion was quiet, almost eerily so. Amara moved cautiously through the vast hallway, the silk robe she had thrown over her clothes swaying with each step. The polished floors reflected the morning sun streaming through tall windows, but the light offered no comfort. Every shadow seemed to whisper Obi's name. Every creak of the floorboards reminded her that she was not truly free, just hidden, momentarily shielded from a life she had fled. She had spent the first hours sitting on the edge of the massive bed in the guest room, hands clasped tightly in her lap, staring at her trembling reflection in the mirror. The events of the previous night replayed over and over in her mind. The wedding hall, the glittering chandeliers, the stifling formality, and then the sharp crack of Obi's hand against her cheek. Her lips still tingled from the strike. His words echoed even now, cruel and possessive. "You'll do as I say. You belong to me, and don't forget it." It had been more than violence. It had been ownership, entitlement, a message that her desires, her voice, and her freedom didn't matter. The fear had ignited a single, burning thought in her mind. She had to escape. The memory made her shiver. She had run through the city streets that night, ignoring the danger, ignoring the impossibility of outrunning a family as powerful as Obi's. And then the truck. She had hidden in the back of a delivery truck, trembling, listening to engines and tires on wet asphalt, wondering if she would be caught, or worse. Now she was here, inside a mansion that was as unfamiliar to her as freedom itself. The air smelled faintly of polished wood and something expensive, something clean and controlled. She wrapped the robe tighter around her, as if that flimsy layer could shield her from more than just cold. Adrian Cole appeared then, stepping into the room without a sound. He moved with the kind of confidence that only came from absolute control, his dark suit pressed perfectly, his hands resting casually at his sides. His gaze softened when it fell on her, but there was a measured calm, an unspoken question in his eyes. "What next?" "You're awake," he said, voice low, steady, almost soothing. Amara's throat tightened. She nodded, unable to speak immediately. The words she might have spoken, the explanations, the excuses, the pleas, felt too heavy. She swallowed, finally whispering, I didn't know where else to go." Adrian stepped closer, but not too close. There was space for her fear, for her autonomy. He observed her carefully, as though reading her without forcing her to reveal herself. "You're safe here," he said simply. "For now. No one will find you inside these walls unless you let them." She looked around, noticing for the first time the sheer scale of the mansion. Every surface, every detail radiated power, authority, wealth, and control. And in that power, there was an odd sense of safety, a sanctuary she hadn't expected. Amara's thoughts drifted back to Obi, to the way his men would already be combing the city, to the whispered calls that would be made, to the relentless pursuit of someone who had defied a governor's son. She pressed her hands to her face, trying to calm the tremors that wouldn't stop. She started, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't think I'd ever get away from him." Adrian tilted his head, studying her. "You did. You're here. That's what matters. The simplicity of the words surprised her. It was the first time anyone had spoken to her that wasn't tinged with command, expectation, or judgment. But even as relief washed over her, the fear remained. She had no illusions about what awaited her outside these walls. Obi's family would not rest. They would not accept her disappearance. Every moment spent in safety here was borrowed time. She sank onto a nearby chair, pulling the robe tighter around her. Her hands shook slightly as she rested them in her lap. He hit me, she admitted, voice low, almost ashamed. In front of everyone. My parents, his parents, everyone. And no one stopped him. Adrian's expression hardened, though subtly. You didn't deserve that. Amara's eyes flickered up at him, meeting his gaze. There was something in his calm, in the certainty of his words, that made her heart beat differently. She had expected anger, judgment, disbelief, but he simply accepted her truth. He acknowledged it. That simple acknowledgement felt revolutionary. She faltered, the memory raw. He expected me to comply, to smile, to marry him like everything was normal. But it wasn't. Adrian leaned slightly forward, but not aggressively. And you refused. Yes, she said, her voice stronger now, though still laced with fear. I refused. And I ran. I ran because if I had stayed, I don't know what would have happened to me. Silence stretched between them, heavy but not uncomfortable. The air seemed to hum with unspoken understanding. Adrian's presence was not threatening. It was steady, protective, calculated, and somehow, in a way she couldn't yet understand, comforting. You're not alone here, he said finally. Not unless you choose to be. Her breath hitched slightly. She realized that part of her had expected him to question her, to interrogate her, to find flaws in her story, but he hadn't. He had offered her sanctuary without a single condition. And that was terrifying, in its own way. Because she had grown used to rules, expectations, ownership. She wasn't used to someone offering freedom. I thank you, she whispered. Adrian's eyes softened, a flicker of something almost like empathy crossing his otherwise controlled features. You should rest, he said. We'll figure out the next steps together. For now you're safe. But safety was relative. Amara's mind kept returning to Obi, to his men, to the relentless search that would inevitably lead them here. She had no doubt that by now, someone in the city would have noticed her absence, and whispers would travel fast, faster than even she could move. The governor's son would not accept defeat. His pride, his wealth, his network of influence, all of it ensured that no runaway bride went unnoticed. She pressed her hands to her face again, feeling the tension knotting in her shoulders. But Adrian's presence, quiet and commanding, steadied her just enough for her racing thoughts to slow. Will they find me? She asked finally, almost afraid of the answer. Adrian's lips pressed into a thin line. If they come, we'll be ready. That's all you need to know for now. She nodded, but inside her mind spun. He didn't know her. He didn't know the intricacies of Obi's family, the men who would be scouring the streets, the political power they wielded, the connections that could unravel even the safest hiding place. And yet, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Not safety exactly, not entirely, but a flicker of trust, a flicker of hope. For the first time since the wedding hall, Amara allowed herself to breathe. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring. She didn't know how long this borrowed safety would last. And she didn't know what this strange, powerful man who had offered her refuge was thinking. But for now, she was here. She had escaped Obi, survived the night, and stepped into a world that, though foreign and intimidating, felt like it might be hers to navigate. And somewhere deep inside, a quiet voice whispered that perhaps maybe this was where something new could begin. The government house was a grandiose display of wealth and authority, walls lined with polished mahogany, chandeliers dripping crystal light, and the faint smell of expensive cologne and old money hanging in the air. But tonight, none of it mattered. Obi's world had fractured. The laughter, the champagne, the celebrations, all gone. Replaced with a storm of fury, confusion, and shame. Obi slammed his fists on the marble table, rattling the glasses and scattering papers. How could this happen? He shouted, voice rising, raw with anger. How could she do this to me? To us? To everything we planned? His parents, the governor and his wife, sat stiffly in their chairs, faces tight with controlled exasperation. Obi's mother, elegantly dressed in silk and jewels, tried to speak calmly, but her son's tirade made the words vanish before they could reach her lips. You forced this. Obi screamed, pointing a trembling finger at them. You forced me to marry that girl. Do you have any idea what this does to me? I had plans. I had women, parties, freedom, and now I'm humiliated in front of everyone. His father, a man used to command, leaned forward, trying to maintain composure. Obi, control yourself. This was for your own good. For my own good? Obi's laugh was bitter, almost hysterical. You call this disaster, my good? I was happy before. I could go out, enjoy myself, live my life without being chained to a girl I barely know. His parents exchanged a glance, their expressions sharp. They had long planned this marriage, not for romance, not for companionship, but for control. Obi's mental instability had worsened over the years. He was brilliant, charismatic, and dangerously charming when he wanted to be, but his moods were unpredictable, volatile, and amplified by the substances he abused. They had forced this union, insisting that Amara would be a stabilizing presence, a responsible woman to anchor him during episodes, to care for him when he spiraled out of control. You think I wanted this? Obi screamed, rising from his chair. His movements were unsteady, wild, a storm threatening to break the doors and windows. You think I wanted to be married? I wanted to. I wanted to live. His hands clawed at his hair as his voice rose, echoing off the polished walls. And she ran away. She humiliated me. Humiliated you. Humiliated the family. Obi's mother cleared her throat sharply. Obi, you will not speak to us that way. This is serious. You cannot let this girl undermine the family, the office, your reputation. You will act. Obi's face twisted with fury, his eyes wild, veins bulging in his temples. Act. I'll act when I feel like it, he yelled, pacing the length of the room, a predator pacing a cage. You forced me to marry her to fix me, to keep me sane, to be responsible for me. And now she's gone. Gone. And I'm left with nothing but shame and… He stopped abruptly, a tremor running through his body. For a moment, the room was silent except for the rapid, uneven beat of his pulse, visible in the tension of his neck and arms. His father's voice cut through sharply, cold and commanding. Obi, you will stop this theatrics. You are the son of the governor. Your actions reflect on the office, on this family. If you cannot act, we will act for you. Obi whirled, the shadows of the room twisting around him as he pointed a finger at his parents, eyes burning. Act. You act. You force me into a marriage, you dictate my life, my freedom, and you expect me to stay calm when she walks away? She mocks us all. Mocks me. His mother's voice rose, trembling with a mixture of anger and fear. Obi, enough. You are the son of the governor. You are supposed to lead, to control. This girl is replaceable. You must get her back. I will not have this scandal ruin everything. Obi staggered back, hands flying in the air, shaking with rage and despair. Replaceable? Replaceable? Do you even hear yourselves? Do you know what she's done to me? What she's done to me in front of the world. His voice cracked as the fury gave way to a dangerous, trembling vulnerability. I can't. I can't be humiliated like this. Not now. Not ever. His father leaned forward, his tone razor-sharp. Obi, this is your duty. You are powerless without action. Amara must be returned. Our families, our reputations, our influence, all of it depends on this. We cannot allow your rebellion, your temper, or your choices to undo everything we have built. You may be unstable, yes, but she is controlled. She will obey. Obi's chest heaved, his body vibrating with a mix of anger, fear, and intoxicated confusion. Obey. She's human. She's alive. And she chose to run. She chose freedom over you, over me, over this prison you built. The governor's wife's hands trembled as she gestured sharply toward him. Do not make this personal, Obi. It is not about love or choice. It is about responsibility. About order. Your father's office, your family's honor, your career. None of it matters if she defies us completely. Obi's laughter cut through the room, dark and bitter. Responsibility? Order? You forced me to be married to a stranger to babysit me? To manage my episodes? And now she's gone, and I'm left to deal with the aftermath? After everything, the governor's hand slammed on the table, rattling papers. Obi, enough. We have men already searching for her. You will sit down and cooperate, or I will find someone else who will bring her back. Do you understand? Obi's hands shook as he ran them down his face, taking in ragged breaths. His voice was lower now, dangerous in its intensity, coated with something darker than mere anger. Do you think this is easy for me? You think this humiliation can be fixed with men and threats? She's gone. And when I get her back, when I do, she will pay. I will make her pay for humiliating me." His parents exchanged uneasy glances. They had underestimated the depth of his instability, the cocktail of entitlement, rage, and substances that drove him. They knew that Obi's father's political ambitions depended on containing the situation, but controlling Obi, controlling his son's impulses, was like trying to cage a wildfire with thin glass. That evening, the governor and his wife visited Amara's parents, their faces formal masks of calm authority. But their words were threats, veiled in courtesy yet lethal in intention. "Your daughter must return to her husband immediately," the governor said, voice smooth, controlled, but carrying the weight of power. "If she does not, you will jeopardize not only your family's reputation, but also the political office that your husband is poised to receive. Understand?" Amara's father swallowed, tension visible in the tight lines of his jaw. He had long coveted the office promised by the governor's influence, the kind of power that could elevate him beyond his peers. And yet, he also feared for his daughter's safety. Though that fear was mixed with resignation, a sense of duty to the family's ambitions. "Yes, we understand," he replied carefully, voice low. We will find her." The governor's wife's eyes gleamed, the threat unmistakable. "Do not test our patience. Amara has obligations. You will honor them, or you will bear the consequences." As they left, Amara's parents exchanged a glance, full of calculation and desperation. They had made their choice. Power was more important than their daughter's safety, more important than her happiness, more important than her life. And so they dispatched men into the city, trusted enforcers, loyal retainers, men who knew how to find what was missing and bring it back. Meanwhile, unbeknownst to them, Amara had already vanished into the safety of Adrian Cole's mansion. Hidden, safe, and growing more aware with each passing hour of the danger that circled just beyond the gates. Every step taken by the men dispatched by her parents, every whisper in the streets about the runaway bride, every movement of Obi's network brought them closer to her. And yet, for now, she remained unseen, untouchable, protected by a man who moved like a shadow, calculating, calm, and undeniably in control. Obi's fury, unchecked, his parents' calculated pressure, and the relentless pursuit of hired men combined to create a storm. But inside the walls of Adrian's mansion, Amara felt a strange mix of fear and something else, something she had not allowed herself to feel in years: curiosity. About the man who offered her sanctuary, about the possibility of a life not dictated by control and power, and perhaps, unknowingly, the beginning of something more, a connection that might grow into trust and maybe love. Amara had spent the first night in Adrian's mansion in a haze of disbelief. The opulence, the silence, the sense of absolute control emanating from every corner. It was unlike anything she had ever experienced. She wore a soft white robe, the fabric brushing against her skin as she moved slowly through the long hallways, her mind still reeling from the events of the night before. Her heart thumped in her chest, not only from fear, but from the strange, calm presence of Adrian Cole, who had taken her in without question, without judgment. Adrian had already begun to establish boundaries for her stay, not in a rigid or cold manner, but with subtle authority. She was safe here, yes, but there was a structure to the household, a rhythm that she was only beginning to understand. He had ordered her to rest, to eat, to recover. And though her body had been exhausted from running and hiding, her mind could not stop racing. Breakfast had been quiet, tension lingering between them. But Adrian had spoken sparingly, measuring his words, giving her space to breathe. Now, as they sat in his study, the room smelled faintly of coffee and the sharp tang of technology. Multiple monitors lined the walls, displaying code, website designs, and graphs that twisted and turned across the screens. It was a world so alien to Amara, yet one she had been silently fascinated by since childhood. "I want you to stay safe," Adrian said, sitting at his desk with calm precision. He didn't glance up at her yet, focused on his work. "And I want you to do more than just hide. You're not helpless. You have skills. You just need guidance." Amara hesitated, unsure what he meant. "I mean," he continued, leaning back in his chair, hands steepled, "I run a remote tech startup. We design and develop websites for clients around the world. I think you could help." Her eyes widened. "Me? Work in tech? I've never." "You learn fast," Adrian interrupted gently. "I'll teach you everything. Coding, design, management. You'll start small, building pages, learning the interface. It's safe, remote, behind firewalls and encryption. No one outside will even know you exist here if we need to hide you." Amara blinked, the fear inside her shifting slightly, replaced by curiosity. For the first time in months, she felt like she might have control over something. Not a wedding dictated by family ambition, not a life dictated by Obi's whims, but something that could belong entirely to her. Over the next few days, Adrian began teaching her. He would sit patiently by her side, hands moving across the keyboard, showing her how to write code, how to use design software, how to structure a website for a client. His patience was extraordinary, almost unnatural, but Amara began to feel comfortable. There was no pressure, no expectations other than learning and understanding. And yet, the way he looked at her sometimes, the quiet intensity in his eyes when she succeeded even at the smallest task, made her heart skip, a feeling she hadn't dared entertain since running from Obi. Adrian, for his part, observed her quietly, noting her strengths, her determination, and the careful way she interacted with his work. He respected her intelligence, but he also found himself drawn to her vulnerability, the way she trusted him enough to let him guide her. Each lesson, each shared joke over a coding error, each subtle smile, built a bridge between them, a bridge that neither had acknowledged, but that both were crossing. Meanwhile, the chaos of her absence continued outside the mansion walls. Obi's fury had not diminished, it had only intensified. Each day that Amara remained missing fueled his resentment, his sense of humiliation, and his obsession with reclaiming her. He would pace the halls of his family's estate, ranting about her insolence, blaming everyone but himself for her disappearance. Obi's men scoured the city relentlessly. They interrogated hotel staff, combed through bus stations, even approached airport security with fabricated identities to find a trace of her. Yet, no matter how close they got, Adrian's mansion remained a fortress, invisible to their technology and untraceable to their connections. Firewalls, security protocols, and clever misdirection ensured Amara's safety. Every failed attempt only added fuel to Obi's instability, making him more volatile, more unpredictable, and more dangerous. But while Obi raged, another complication began to unfold. Uju, Amara's younger sister, had been watching the situation closely. Since childhood, Uju had harbored a complicated mix of admiration, envy, and jealousy toward Amara. Amara had always been the favored one, the responsible, beautiful, intelligent daughter who seemed to glide through life effortlessly. Uju, quieter, more cunning, had often felt overshadowed. And now, the opportunity she had long waited for presented itself. Uju had caught sight of Obi's designer gifts, expensive watches, bracelets, and jewelry, once intended for Amara. They were displayed in the living room when the governor and his wife had visited, a reminder of what Amara had taken from the family, and what the family might still gain if the marriage went through. Uju, driven by a mixture of ambition and desire for wealth, decided that she could step in. She could charm Obi, win his attention, and manipulate the situation in her favor. Her parents, blinded by the promise of political gain, would support her move, and she would finally have the power and recognition she craved. Uju's plan was simple but effective. She began by presenting herself as concerned and delicate, a sister worried about her runaway sibling. She approached Obi with subtle gestures, laughter, and compliments, planting seeds of attraction. Her eyes sparkled whenever he spoke, feigning admiration for his influence and charisma. Slowly, Obi's attention shifted. He began noticing Uju in ways he had not noticed Amara, her careful smiles, the way she laughed at his crude jokes, her eagerness to please. And Uju, shrewd and calculating, knew exactly how to make him crave more. Back in Adrian's mansion, Amara remained oblivious to Uju's schemes. She focused on learning, on regaining a sense of independence, on navigating the safety that Adrian provided. Each day she spent in his presence, each late-night session on coding, each quiet moment in the mansion's sprawling gardens built a subtle tension between them. She began noticing the small things. The way Adrian's lips pressed into a line when he was thinking, the way his hand brushed his hair absent-mindedly. The depth in his gaze that seemed to study her more than her work. Adrian, though disciplined, could not deny the pull he felt toward Amara. She was bright, resourceful, and resilient, the exact opposite of the fragile, demanding women he had encountered in the business world. The way she adapted, learned, and pushed herself without complaint intrigued him. And though he maintained professional boundaries, he could feel the beginnings of something more. Something personal, something dangerous, something that would challenge him far more than any startup ever could. The mansion, with its silent corridors and hidden rooms, became their sanctuary. Meetings over website design evolved into shared meals. Discussions about color palettes and layouts turned into laughter, and small moments of vulnerability. A shy smile, a glance that lingered too long, began to form. Outside, Obi raged. Uju schemed. Amara's parents pushed for compliance. And yet inside, in a world insulated by Adrian's wealth, intellect, and careful planning, a bond began to form. A bond neither of them fully understood, but one that grew stronger with each passing day. Adrian also ensured Amara was not idle. He created a small, secure workspace within the mansion, allowing her to contribute meaningfully to his projects. She built pages, edited designs, and learned coding logic, finding satisfaction in the tangible progress of her work. The confidence it gave her was intoxicating, reinforcing her sense of autonomy and self-worth. And through it all, Adrian watched. He guided without overbearing, corrected without condescension, and offered praise sparingly, in ways that made her strive for more. Meanwhile, Uju's advances toward Obi grew bolder. She would laugh at his jokes, compliment his taste, and subtly suggest that Amara had abandoned him out of weakness. The governor and his wife, seeing Uju as the solution to their political ambitions, encouraged her. Each evening, they whispered praise, reminding her of the gifts, the power, the attention she would gain if she succeeded. And slowly, Obi began to respond. The mix of entitlement, addiction, and vulnerability made him an easy target for Uju's charm. Inside the mansion, Amara felt herself changing too. She discovered strength she had never known, a clarity she had been denied while living under her parents' expectations and Obi's shadow. She also felt the stirrings of a forbidden attraction toward Adrian, quiet, tentative, and dangerous. He was powerful, enigmatic, and wholly different from the world she had fled. And yet, every time she caught him watching her, offering a small, almost imperceptible smile, her heart betrayed her reason. The days stretched into nights. The mansion, with its sprawling gardens and high walls, became a world apart. And in that world, two people, one recovering from betrayal and fear, the other from control and discipline, began to find an understanding, a connection, and the faint beginnings of love. Amara remained oblivious to Uju's schemes. She focused on learning, on regaining a sense of independence, on navigating the safety that Adrian provided. Each day she spent in his presence, each late-night session on coding, each quiet moment in the mansion's sprawling gardens built a subtle tension between them. She began noticing the small things. The way Adrian's lips pressed into a line when he was thinking, the way his hand brushed his hair absent-mindedly, the depth in his gaze that seemed to study her more than her work. Adrian, though disciplined, could not deny the pull he felt toward Amara. A bond began to form, a bond neither of them fully understood, but one that grew stronger with each passing day. She also felt the stirrings of a forbidden attraction toward Adrian, quiet, tentative, and dangerous. He was powerful, enigmatic, and wholly different from the world she had fled. And yet, every time she caught him watching her, offering a small, almost imperceptible smile, her heart betrayed her reason. The days stretched into nights. The mansion, with its sprawling gardens and high walls, became a world apart. And in that world, two people, one recovering from betrayal and fear, the other from control and discipline, began to find an understanding, a connection, and the faint beginnings of love. Outside, a war of power, ambition, and obsession raged. Obi's men searched, Uju plotted, and Amara's parents pushed. But inside Adrian's walls, Amara learned to create, to fight back in her own way, and to trust slowly, cautiously, and perhaps dangerously, with the man who had saved her from a life she had never chosen. Months had passed since Amara disappeared from the life that had been forced upon her. Inside Adrian's mansion, time moved differently. The chaos of the outside world seemed distant, muted by high walls, tight security, and Adrian's careful planning. What began as refuge had slowly transformed into something else, something steadier. Amara was no longer the frightened bride who had climbed into the back of a truck to escape a life she dreaded. Each day she spent learning beside Adrian strengthened her confidence. The glowing monitors in his workspace had become familiar to her now. Lines of code no longer looked like a foreign language. She could design layouts, structure pages, and build simple websites with growing ease. Adrian often sat beside her during the late evenings, guiding her through difficult sections of code. Back in the city, the marriage that had once been forced onto Amara had continued without her. Under pressure from both families and desperate to maintain their political alliances, Amara's younger sister Uju had stepped forward. What began as subtle flirtation had quickly evolved into something official. Within weeks, Uju had married Obi. To many outsiders, it appeared as though the families had simply resolved the misunderstanding. Amara's disappearance was quietly buried beneath political influence and carefully crafted public statements. The governor's office spun the story as a private family matter. But inside that marriage, the truth was far darker. Uju had entered the marriage believing she had won something valuable. Since childhood, she had envied Amara. Amara had always been admired, beautiful, composed, intelligent. Uju had lived in her shadow for years. When she saw the designer bags, the jewelry, the luxury gifts Obi once gave Amara, something inside her shifted. She wanted that life. She wanted the attention, the wealth, the status. And most of all, she wanted to finally be the daughter her parents praised. At first, Obi seemed pleased with the arrangement. Uju was obedient, charming, eager to impress him. She laughed at his jokes and admired his lifestyle. Their parents celebrated the union as if nothing had gone wrong. But Obi had never truly changed. His temper still burned hot and unpredictable. His moods swung violently, fueled by the substances he continued to abuse and the resentment he carried from Amara's escape. Deep down, he never forgot the humiliation he had suffered when she ran away. And Uju, despite her ambitions, slowly began to see the man behind the wealth. One evening, several months into the marriage, the house was quiet. Uju stood in the large kitchen of their home, carefully stirring a pot of jollof rice. She had spent nearly an hour preparing the meal. The smell of tomatoes, spices, and pepper filled the air. She placed the food on a plate and carried it into the dining room where Obi sat scrolling through his phone. She forced a smile. "I made dinner," she said softly. Obi barely looked up. He took a spoonful, chewing slowly. For a brief second, Uju felt hopeful. Maybe tonight would be peaceful. Then Obi's face twisted with irritation. "What is this?" he snapped. "It's jollof rice," Uju replied nervously. "I thought you." Before she could finish, Obi suddenly grabbed the plate and flung it across the table. The food splattered violently across Uju's face and chest. The room fell silent. For a moment, neither of them moved. Uju stood frozen, rice sliding slowly down her cheek. Obi leaned back in his chair, his expression full of disgust. "You call that food?" he sneered. Something inside Uju snapped. For months she had endured his insults, his unpredictable moods, the constant tension of living with a man who treated everyone like property. But this moment, the humiliation, the disrespect, ignited a sudden burst of anger. Without thinking, she stepped forward and slapped him. The sound echoed sharply in the room. Obi's eyes widened. For a split second, the air froze between them. Then his expression darkened. "You dare hit me?" he growled. Before Uju could step back, Obi lunged forward and struck her with brutal force. His fist collided with her side, sending her crashing against the table. Uju gasped, clutching her stomach. She was heavily pregnant. The pain exploded through her body. Obi stood above her, breathing heavily, anger still burning in his eyes. But the damage had already been done. Within minutes, servants rushed into the room and called for help. Uju was taken to the hospital. The sterile smell of the hospital room filled the air as she lay quietly on the bed hours later. Machines beeped softly beside her. Her body ached. Her mind felt numb. For the first time since marrying Obi, the illusion shattered completely. She had believed wealth would protect her. She had believed obedience would keep the peace. But now she saw the truth clearly. She had married the same monster her sister had escaped. Tears slid slowly down her face. Her hands trembled as she reached for her phone. There was only one person she could call. Amara. Far away in Adrian's mansion, Amara sat in the study reviewing a website layout she had been designing for one of Adrian's clients. The soft glow of the computer screen illuminated the room. Her phone rang suddenly. She frowned slightly when she saw the caller ID. Uju. For a moment she hesitated. They had not spoken since the wedding. Finally, she answered. "Hello." At first, there was only quiet sobbing on the other end. "Amara," Uju whispered weakly. Amara's expression immediately shifted with concern. "Uju, what's wrong?" I'm in the hospital." Amara sat up quickly. "What happened?" Uju struggled to speak through her tears. "He hit me," she said. "Obi hit me." The words hung heavily in the silence between them. Amara closed her eyes briefly. She had feared something like this might happen. "I should have listened to you," Uju continued, her voice shaking. I thought I thought I could handle him. I thought the money, the gifts, I thought it would be worth it. Her voice cracked. But it isn't. Amara felt a deep ache in her chest. For years their relationship had been complicated, filled with rivalry and jealousy. But hearing her sister broken like this stirred something stronger than resentment. It stirred compassion. "I'm sorry," Uju whispered. "I'm so sorry, Amara. I shouldn't have married him. I shouldn't have tried to take your place." Amara spoke softly. "You didn't take my place." Uju sniffled. "I just wanted what you had." Amara shook her head gently. "You don't understand," she said quietly. "What I had wasn't love. It was control." Uju cried harder. "I need your help," she said. "I can't stay here. If I go back, he'll destroy me." Amara leaned back in her chair, thinking carefully. "You need to leave," she said firmly. "I know," Uju whispered. "But I don't know how." Amara looked toward the large window overlooking the mansion grounds. For the first time, she realized the path she had taken might now help someone else escape the same trap. "You'll run," Amara said gently. "Like you did?" "Yes." "But where will I go?" Amara hesitated for a moment. Then she said something she never expected to say. "You'll come to me." There was silence on the line. "You mean that?" Uju asked. "Yes." Uju broke down crying again. "I don't deserve your forgiveness." Amara's voice softened. "We're sisters. That matters more than everything else." Both women cried quietly, the pain of their shared experiences finally breaking through years of misunderstanding. Then Amara wiped her tears and spoke with new determination. "Listen carefully," she said. "We're going to plan this properly. You won't run blindly like I did." Uju nodded weakly on the other end. "I'm listening." And for the next hour, the two sisters began quietly planning Uju's escape. Unbeknownst to them, their decision would soon set powerful forces into motion once again. When Amara and Adrian returned from their wedding in Dubai, news about Uju's twins and her new life reached their parents. At first, their parents were angry and bitter. They blamed Amara for destroying the political opportunity they once had with Obi's family. Without the governor's support, their influence in society faded quickly. The same people who used to visit their house for favors stopped coming. Months later, they finally heard the truth about how Obi treated Uju, the violence, the hospital incident, and how she almost lost her babies. Their mother broke down in tears. "We forced our daughter into suffering because of status," she cried. Their father, once proud and stubborn, became quiet and withdrawn. For the first time, he realized that his ambition had nearly destroyed his own child's life. One day, they traveled quietly to the small roadside food stall where Uju was selling jollof rice to support her twins. When Uju saw them, she froze. Her mother fell to her knees and started crying. "Forgive us. We chose power over our daughters." Uju was silent for a moment. Then she slowly helped her mother up. "I can forgive you," she said softly, "but things cannot go back to the way they were." From that day, the parents began trying to rebuild their relationship with their daughters, not as controlling parents, but as people who had finally learned the cost of their mistakes. Meanwhile, Uju's food business slowly grew into a small restaurant. Amara and Adrian helped her expand it. The twins grew up surrounded by love instead of fear. And Obi remained in rehabilitation, a broken man whose anger had destroyed everything he once had. In the end, everyone faced the consequences of their choices.